I read Voice and the Actor by Cicley Berry when I was at drama school in 1981, and then it had been published about 10 or 15 years by then and was the acknowledged book for all actors to read and has remained so. Tens of thousands of actors have bought that book down the decades since. Cicley Berry is, I would say, the acknowledged
really
world leader in voice training.
So can you feel all that? And how one
And I'm very excited to be interviewing her today. We're here at Leicester University at a conference with the Voice Care Network in conversation with Cicley Berry, who's Director of Voice at the Royal Shakespeare Company. Cicley, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask you, first off,
Yeah.
how much of your career was intentional? How did it get going?
Well, everything is luck, isn't it? I mean, it just took shape. I was always, as a kid, absolutely besotted with poetry. And so that when I left school, the Earthen School in Caterham, my father sent me to the Central School of Speech and Drama in London. And he was a wonderful man, my father. He worked as a clerk in the city all his life, but he was absolutely besotted with music, and he couldn't, every time there was any music on the radio, which was nearly all the time, he had to get up and conduct it. He was lovely. So I went to the Central School of Speech and Drama and enjoyed it very much. It was a 3-year course. Gwyneth Thurban was the head then, and she was a quite remarkable woman. And she had the most wonderful sense of humour, and she only had one eye. So when she was talking to you, never quite sure where to look. But she was an amazing woman, and she was also quite very left-wing, which suited my politics. And so I did work there, and when I left after 3 years, I went and worked in different schools in the country. And then she asked me to come back and do work with the actors group in the school. And so I started to work with actors and just got really interested in that and centred on it.
You mentioned in your book, Your Voice and How to Use It,
Yeah.
how important voice and voice work is for the teacher. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's tremendously important for the teacher, because a teacher can draw people by the way they speak to them, that they have to have, if they're working with a large group of people, they have to be able to reach everybody, but not by pushing their voice at it, but by drawing people in and finding ways of interesting people to listen, of getting people to want to listen by the very sound of the voice. It's not being put off by the fact that they've got to reach everybody out there like that, but rather about getting people interested and drawing them in to the voice. I think that's what's really important. Some years ago, we were working at the RSC on the Spanish tragedy by Thomas Kidd, and one line kept hitting me out of it and catching my ear, and it was, "Where words prevail not, violence prevails." And I think that's really the bottom line of my work, is trying to get people to listen to what you can say and get through with your words. I think not nearly enough is done in schools to encourage young people to talk to each other and to talk about things, about a subject or anything, and give them confidence to speak. And I really think that is absolutely at the bottom line of society and culture.
So Cicley, you're writing a new book. What's that called?
It's going to be called My Journey with the RSC, I think, something like that. It's about my journey with the work in the company since I joined in 1970. And it's really, I'm really writing it for voice people now who are teaching or working with actors, because I think it will be useful for them to realise how my journey did develop.
How did you get involved with the Royal Shakespeare Company?
In 1970, it was, Trevor Nunn took over the Royal Shakespeare Company, and for some unknown reason he knew about my work and he asked me to join the company. And it was an amazing opportunity because it was the first theatre company that had a voice person there full-time. And so I started at the Royal Shakespeare Company in 1970. And it was a wonderful piece of luck. And at the time, there were these three great directors, Trevor Nunn, Terry Hands, and John Barton. Mm-hmm. And I learnt so much from them. They were all three so open to my work and received me in their rehearsals, and then I would take actors away and work with them separately. From Trevor, I learned so much about the passion in the language and the extreme sensitivity in the language. I think the first play I worked on with him was Winter's Tale, and with Judi Dench, and it was a wonderful experience. From Terry Hands was always saying louder and faster. He did mainly the epic plays and the history plays, and I learnt from him really just how the speed that Shakespeare needs to be spoken in. Shakespeare writes at the speed of people's thought, and therefore we understand how his thinking works, how one thought projects to the next and projects to the next always. And I learnt that from Terry. And from John Barton, of course, I learnt very much about the form of the language, rhythms, meter, caesuras in the middle of a line and all the rest of it, antithesis and all that. So I was able to bring together all those three directors and their knowledge and take them and work with actors.
As a voice coach, I think more than any other voice coach, you're focused on text.
Yes, I mean, obviously actors have to work on their voice because they have to have it free and full and have a lot of resonance and variety in their voices. But I like to get that through the work on text, frankly, because it's text that interests me, and I think text that we need to focus on.
You're known, Cicley, for being quite revolutionary.
Oh, right, good.
And an iconoclast, if you like. Well, can you think about when that first started? Sort of what lit that fire?
Well, I was about 8, I remember. And it was at the time of the Spanish Civil War, and I listened to the news all the time, all day, as much as I could. And I can remember the people next door to our house in Pinner had a swimming pool in the garden, and I went in to swim, and as I came back and climbed over the fence from that swimming pool, I thought, yes, I'm a socialist.
Really?
Yeah. I was 8.
A socialist in a swimsuit?
Yes, that's right. And I always remember that moment. It's ridiculous, I know, and stupid, but we do remember these moments.
Yeah.
And it was from then on that I became political, that I thought at a political level, as it were. So that politics have always influenced everything in my life, who I like, what I do and everything.
Because you said to me once that there's nothing that Shakespeare wrote that isn't political.
Oh, I believe that, yes.
Just tell us a bit about that.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think all his plays, in the end, have a political message.
And what form of politics does that take, do you think?
The equality of people. I mean, King Lear is the most amazing example of that, in that he is a king and has all these people serving him and everything, but he ends up the play saying, "I am just a man." And that really influenced me.
You've been the patron of the Voice Care Network since the beginning.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about why you've got involved and
Well,
why you keep involved?
as I've said earlier today, Ros is younger than me, but we were at the Central School together, and so we always kept in touch and kept friends. And when I thought that her understanding of the needs of teachers and the fact that teachers so often are under strain when they're talking, and it's very important for teachers to have a voice, I think, that makes people want to listen to them without pushing it at them. And I think that her vision of what teachers needed to keep their voices in good trim, without losing them, without straining them, was such a great idea. And she started this up, and I have been for it ever since. I think it is an amazing association.
This association, the Voice Care Network, this conference,
This network, yeah.
is it's about voice across time.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about during your long, if I may, experience in this field?
All right. Keep the long out of it.
We'll edit that.
Okay.
But during your experience, what's the difference in the way that voice has been taught?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I know what I feel about in the Royal Shakespeare Company. How when I joined the language, the text was still very well spoken, rather musically spoken, and sounded, poetic and resonant. And when Trevor took over the company, he wanted to bring the company to the present, to make Shakespeare sound as though it is being spoken for now. And that was a great challenge, because we need actors to sound as though they're speaking for now. Yet we also need to hear the resonance in the language, the musicality of the language, which so often which is integral to the meaning and to the characters. And it's a very delicate mix that I think actors today have. I think they have a really difficult task to make it sound as though it is being spoken for now, so that it means something for now, and yet make us hear the resonances, like when Ophelia says, "Oh, what a noble mind is here o'erthrown," or she ends up with, "To have seen what I have seen, see what I see," which is very she's almost crying in the sound of it. And we need, as an audience, to hear that, because it is all part of the depth of the meaning. So it's a very tricky balance that actors have to do to be able to sound as though they're speaking for now, and yet honouring the sound in the language, which takes us deeper into the characters.
Do you think there's anything different or different methods in voice coaching comes of the sort of fashions, if you like?
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about some of the more bizarre fashions from the past?
Well, I was taught rib reserve breathing, which was about keeping the ribs out and speaking on the breath from the diaphragm. And that was, in its way, it was very good, because it opened the ribs out, it gave you the resonance on the chest and the musicality that you can get in your voice, and it made you able to control how you did it by using the breath from the diaphragm. But as I started to work with actors, I felt that was so technically limiting in a way. So I think it's very important that actors open their chests out and get as much movement in the ribs as possible, so there's always breath there, but not to keep it absolutely precise like that and speak just from the diaphragm breath, but to feel the resonance in the chest and in the voice, but to feel also the breath starting as deep inside you as possible. I like to tell actors to sit down in their voice, because I think that takes them into their own self in an extraordinary way.
Do you think the way that Shakespeare is appreciated and taught, maybe in schools and drama schools, do you think that's changed down the years?
I think it has, but I think what is extraordinary about Shakespeare is how up to date he is. I mean, because if you go into, young people really love Shakespeare. They love working on it. There's something about the very sound of it that still resonates inside a person and still gives a meaning there. And I have done a great deal of work in prisons over the years, and the joy that they get in a prison of doing Shakespeare and finding the sound of it and the language of it is just extraordinary.
Now, Cicley, you're famous for saying rude words.
Yeah. Oh, right.
You swear quite a bit.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What's that about?
It's not really about anything. I've always sworn quite a lot.
Yeah.
Sworn at my kids. They swear back at me.
Right.
No, it just keeps you down to earth, that's all.
Okay. And one last question, if I may. How would you like to be remembered?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I hope I'm remembered for the work I've done, like in prisons or like in Brazil, where I go very regularly. It's an amazing place. I work in a slum, which was started, and the group called Nos de Moro, Us from the Hills. And the group started when it was starting, when I was invited by the British Council to go and do a workshop in Brazil with top actors there. And in that group, there was a wonderful man called Gucci Fraga, who took part in the workshop, but who had started a group in the hills, in one of the slums up there, behind Rio. And he had started this group of young people who, and he asked me to go up and see them. And I saw a performance, I think, I'm not quite sure, I think it was Two Gentlemen of Verona that they were doing at the time. And he was an extraordinary man because he got young people from the slum into the group, but he really made them work very professionally. So they did breathing work and work on their text and work on their articulation and everything. And the group became quite well known and did work in the main theatre in Rio. And he was an amazing man, Gucci Fraga. And they brought about 5 years ago, they brought over Two Gentlemen of Verona to Stratford-on-Avon.
Did they?
And played it there.
And they spoke in Portuguese? Wow.
Yeah, it's always interesting working in another language. I don't understand Portuguese, but you kind of hear so much there. I worked in Mandarin in China, which is quite extraordinary. I worked on King Lear in Mandarin.
Really?
And,
how did that go?
rather well, actually.
I'm glad to hear it.
But it's extraordinary what you get from the sound of language.
Yeah.
And you sort of, I mean, as they're doing plays that I know, which they, are, you can hear what they're saying and what it means.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
Well, thank you for sharing some time with us, Cicley.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Always a pleasure to see you.
You too.